Hello and welcome back to Talking Europe. Sport is politics, and perhaps the two most political events in the sporting calendar are the Olympics and the Football World Cup. For decades, both fixtures have been marked by controversy, intrigue, and even boycotts. This year, it's Qatar's turn to feel the heat. The Gulf nation is hosting the FIFA World Cup, even as human rights groups document the colossal loss of life among migrant laborers working on the country's massive construction program. Moreover, Qatar's attitude to same-sex relationships has prompted calls for the Emirate to be shunned. As a protest, several French cities are banning fan zones so the public won't be able to watch on giant screens. But of course, there's no question of the French team, which won the World Cup 4 years ago, of boycotting Qatar 2022. It's obviously a moral minefield, and to help us navigate this, I'm joined by Mark Tarabella, a Belgian MEP from the group of Socialists and Democrats. Welcome to you.
Thanks.
Also very pleased to welcome Ernest Urtasun from the group of the Greens, who comes from Spain. Thank you so much, Ernest, as well. Gentlemen, my first question to you is Qatar a special case when it comes to sporting controversies, Mark?
Well, it's a special case because it's the first time that it's an organization in the Arabic Peninsula for the World Cup. And of course, with some climate questions, also human rights. I focus on human rights, but not only 2 days before the World Cup. I think that this parliament had already taken a resolution on November 2013, insisting on the necessity to improve the condition of work of migrant workers. And I think that since this time, and the pressure of NGOs, international organizations, trade unions, politicians, journalists, I think that Qatar improved the situation. Thanks to the World Cup organization, probably it was accelerated, not perfect, and they admit that it's not perfect today, but they abandoned, is a unique country in this zone which abandoned the kafala system, taking the passport, also fixing a minimum salary, also not cash but on a bank account, also providing some measure for allowance for food or housing. It's not perfect. For example, because some companies are reluctant to apply the new laws. And we have to underline and acknowledge the effort that they did and to accompany the process in the future. After the World Cup, it's important to continue to progress and to invite the other country in the neighborhood to make the same progress on human rights, for example, and in particular, workers' rights.
You probably have a less rosy picture of this situation.
I think that Qatar wasn't qualified to host the World Cup. Well, firstly, the selection process of Qatar as the host was already full of controversy, accusation of bribes and things that are well documented. But then again, I mean, it's a country that did not have the infrastructure to have that. So they had to construct new stadiums in a time record, which created all sorts of labor problems that we have been witnessing. Secondly, the issue of the human rights situation. I think that at the end of the day, we're in the middle of an exercise of a human rights washing. And thirdly, for climate reasons. I think that organizing such a big sports event in a country that doesn't have the climatic conditions to host it, I think it's a terrible mistake.
We'll come back to the climate issue, but just to pick up on what Mark Tarabella said about the kafala system, which is this very controversial relationship between employers and laborers in Qatar. Let's take a closer look at that situation with this rare access that our reporters, Chloe Domain and Ram Pateria, had to a dormitory in Qatar where some of those migrant laborers are based. Let's have a look at this.
The workers cleaned up all they could right from the start, but they still lack basic necessities.
This is our accommodation. See, some come inside, come inside. Some people are sleeping down here. In the night, some people sleep down here. Someone do like this. Why like this? The company say will provide us bed. The company will provide us food.
There's no canteen, no refrigerator. There's not even a dedicated cooking area.
And this is how we cook our food here. Just trying to survive here. This is what we buy now. We don't have any place to go and get some food, you see? This is what we eat. The thing, what is happening to us, we are tired now. We are really tired. That's all I can say. Yeah.
In addition to their unsanitary living conditions, the workers say they haven't been paid for months.
Every day they promise us to give us the salary and not yet giving the salary.
Yeah, it's about a year now, not only me, but all my friends. We try to talk to the company say will take us to police. Some of us want to go back to their countries. Some of us want to change companies. The company has taken all our passports. What should we do here?
Well, that was just an extract from that report. So, gentlemen, is there anything the West or Europe particularly can do to change that situation? The law has changed on paper, but we can see in practice the reality is very different. Does the EU have any instruments of pressure there, based on what you just saw?
Well, we do, absolutely. Yeah. We have a human rights dialogue with the whole region, and this is and that needs to be used in order to improve the human rights situation. And particularly now that the World Cup comes, I think that we have to use that Qatar is in the spotlight of all the world to denounce that and to really call for the Qatari authorities to respect. I cannot recall one single big international event that has provoked, according to The Guardian, 6,000 death workers in the last years. I mean, this is just a scandal, and we have to use the opportunity of the World Cup to denounce this.
Mark, any levers of pressure when you see that report about the reality there?
When I see that, it's clear that it's the company which is not respecting the new laws in Qatar. And it's important also to accompany Qatar. For example, Belgian government and Mr. Dermijn, the Deputy Prime Minister, will propose to help them with inspector on the work inspector. And because it's necessary to invite and to oblige the company to respect the law and to implement the law. And I think that's it's also important. It's not only, and I think that the Qatar authority are conscious that is not enough to vote new laws, they have to make progress, but also to implement. And I think that it's clear in this case that it's a company which is not respecting the law, as it happens also in our country sometimes. Huh? You know, the railway station in Belgium were cleaned by illegal Romanian, 12 years ago for a salary of €300 per month. Yeah, and it was a subcontracting chain, too long, and the inspector of Belgium did their job. And of course it was better before, but after. But I think that it's necessary to continue the process.
Just to come back to a point you made much earlier, Nestor Tassoun, about the climate cost, does this set Qatar apart as well from other big sporting events?
I think that we need to realize that we're in the middle of a climate emergency. We cannot continue doing business as usual, also in sports. Things need to change. There are places where Winter Olympics cannot be organized any longer, and there are places where you cannot organize a World Cup because you need to refrigerate the stadiums, and this has a huge impact when it comes to the energy consumption. So that's what I was saying at the beginning. Qatar was not qualified to host that, also from an environmental perspective, because the environmental bill of organizing that now is going to be huge. I think that we need to rethink how we organize the sporting events. I'm in favor of the sporting events. I'm not contesting that. But for instance, we need to be more efficient using the infrastructures we already have and going to countries where temperatures allow a proper development of the sport.
Mark Tarabella, is Qatar 2022, is it a climate aberration?
I think that's, yes, but I think that's the awarding criteria in the future, first of all, for the FIFA and the Olympic Committee has to think more to the sustainability of a place of competition. But a competition is never neutral. Why? Because many people are coming, athletes, accompaniers, and also fans of each country, and of course, coming from all the world. And I think it's never neutral. Here, I think it's not a refrigerating stadium. The competition take place in November and December for the first time because the temperature are still high, between 25 and 35 degrees. And in Europe, in November, we have to have a system because it's lowest temperature. in those countries, it's normal that they have not to refrigerate, but to push a little bit fresh air because it's 30 degrees. We have not to be only Eurocentric, not Eurocentric when you think about some necessities.
That's a point, right? I mean, these events can't always happen in completely democratic countries, Denmark or Sweden, for example.
No, of course, I think that you need to think well and the balance of when you choose a country to do a certain event. But I do, and there are countries that are better placed in terms of human rights than others. But I think that the Gulf Peninsula, and particularly Saudi Arabia, but also Qatar and others, have an extremely bad record when it comes to human rights. And at the end of the day, by organizing those events there, you are creating a whole operation of human rights washing. This is what is happening. And I'm not convinced really that the organization of that event is going to be a game changer in the human rights situation in the region. On the contrary, I think it will it will be used to clean the image that everything is perfect. I don't think this is correct.
Just a final point, Mark Tarabella, do you think the EU should demand higher standards, both environmental and social standards?
Not only EU, I think that the first responsibility is on the international organization, FIFA and Olympic International Committee. They have to change their way to award a competition in the future. And I think it will be the case, for example, taking into account the lessons of the past.
Yeah. We'll have to end it there. Thank you so much to my guests, Mark Tarabella and Ernest Urtasun. That's all for this edition of Talking Europe. Join us for another edition very soon, and thanks for watching.